Hello everybody, JGC Anime here, and today we are going to be finally reviewing the case study of Vanitas Part 2, because I have now not reviewed this for 3 months or so. I don't know when the last review came out. I haven't reviewed this part yet because I was waiting for the longest time for the English dub to finish, because I watched the English dub of this show and I plan to continue it that way. So it took me a long time, but I finally, a few days ago, sat down and watched this part, and today I'm here to talk about it. So yeah, let's just begin. So, where does the story of part 2 of the case study of Vanitas take place? Now that the part 1 storyline is complete, we are now moving off to some snowy mountain due to a report from Vanitas's information gatherer Dante. Dante tells Vanitas and Noe that there's some monster that appeared that could be like a corrupt vampire, and since Vanitas, as mentioned in part 1, heals corrupted vampires, that's just the way I'm referring to them as. It's more like vampires that have lost their names, but I'm just gonna say corrupted vampires because that's kind of a better way to describe it. They're going there to go save that vampire. So yeah, that's how it starts. Of course, they're not the only ones going there. A bunch of other characters are coming too, like the people from the church and Jean, however you want to pronounce it. I'm gonna say Jean or Jean. I don't know, just Jean, I guess, because that's how Vanitas most of the time says it. And yeah, that's how things start. So let's go into what I like and dislike. So I actually really love the story for the first half of this second part. Even though I think that the second half of this second part, I know it sounds weird to say, but I feel like since there are 2 storylines, I feel like the first one was better than the second one. The second one isn't bad, but the first one is a lot better, which is also kind of the same thing I have to say about this whole season, but we can talk about that later. But I feel like the first storyline we went through, which was them in the snowy mountains trying to fix one of the corrupted vampires, but instead going in way deeper than they originally anticipated, was very good. It was a lot of fun, and it gave a lot of development for things like the developments between Vanitas and Jean, and I can't really discuss much more about that without spoiling, so we're gonna move past that for now. And I really like most of it. The action is pretty solid, the character development is well done, and the pacing is incredible. So much happens in the first episode of the second part, and yet I don't feel like it was rushed. It felt very developed, very well paced, and when it was over, even at the end of the season, I thought this was satisfying, and I am happy I watched this because it was really good. I didn't love everything in it. However, I did like almost everything. There are a few characters that I felt were kind of unnecessary, but also at the same time because they might come in later in the story. One of which is the character Astolfo. No, not that Astolfo. This Astolfo. But yeah, I say this version, but this is a completely different Astolfo from the one many Fate fans are aware of. But this Astolfo is, he's probably one of my least favorite characters in the story. He has this whole backstory in the series now, and he's supposed to have some sort of development, but it feels like when watching, I can discuss more about him in the spoiler section, but he felt like a very unsure character, like the writer didn't know how to write him. But I'll talk about that later on. Most of the characters are a lot of fun in this. There are some that get more screen time than others. Of course there are, because, the developments have to happen. And one thing that I do notice a lot about this part of the series is that it focuses definitely more on the characters this time around, because the first part relied very heavily on stuff like the world, kind of explaining how the world works, how things around are developed, and who does what in this world. But this part definitely focuses more on who the characters are and where things will go from here. So I guess I'm already going into some spoiler-free thoughts. So let's just say we're in that section now. So yeah, there's a lot of more character development in this part than the first one. In part 1, the story mostly focuses on building up this world and the characters in it, whereas this part just relies much more on, we've established everything, so now we're going to just hop right into it and explain everything to you. By explain everything, I mean just give the characters development. We're done showing off the world. It's time to fully move into the characters. And I think they do that quite well. I don't love every character in this story. However, when we went into a lot of it, I liked most of it. My only gripes are probably, again, a few characters I didn't like that much, and a big gripe that I definitely have to talk about, which is the weird storytelling elements at times. Again, I was gonna say, this is all a bunch of spoiler talk, so I'm just going to hop into the spoiler section now, because I really cannot go into any more without spoiling anything. So here's a timestamp to when the spoiler section ends. If you have seen this part of Vanitas, I recommend sticking around to hear my thoughts, but if you haven't, I'd recommend skipping to the end so you don't get spoiled. But that's all I can really say, so let's just count down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what do I mean by some weird pacing issues? So the whole thing about this is that the corrupted vampire is the character, or Jean's friend, who is also kind of like a caretaker. Her name is Chloe, and she's apparently like a corrupted vampire that was fine with being corrupted because she wanted to protect the person close to her. His name is Jean Jacques, or Chastel, or Jean Jacques Chastel, I don't know. Let's just say Jean Jacques. He has a whole backstory with Chloe, and their backstory is interesting, and they were probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed the first half of part 2 so much. Their whole story was very interesting. However, Chloe has this weird thing where she has to work with the main enemy of the series, Nynia, whatever her name is. She has to work with her. I believe it's a her. It's just like this giant black shadow that is revealed to be like a queen or something of vampires. I don't know. And Chloe just is trying to work with her just to actually secretly get rid of her. And I feel like that works. However, I was so lost later on, because then they're like, oh, this shadow thing, she's the queen of vampires and something else, which I thought, okay, yeah, sure. But then suddenly she kisses Chloe and puts some kind of weird black ooze in her mouth and body, which does something or other. I don't know. It just got so freaking confusing. I was lost. I was so lost by that part in the story. As much as I'd say I like the storyline a lot more than I do the second storyline in this part, the second storyline, it definitely flows a lot better. But this one, it's weird. I like it, but I also find a few issues with it. Again, I didn't really like Astolfo in this too much, because he is just literally I thought we could trust vampires, but then a vampire killed my family, so now I hate all vampires because there are no good vampires. And yeah, I get it. There has to be some character in the world like that. However, I felt like how they did it with Astolfo was a bit weird. Like the way he's introduced, other than Noe accidentally bumping into him before they hop on a train to go to find Chloe and, you know, Jean Jacques. Right, they run into, or Noe runs into Astolfo at the start, but when they actually meet, they have this weird interaction where it's implied that Astolfo gets off on hunting vampires, but then that whole storyline is just dropped, like literally immediately, just completely dropped, because now he just hates vampires because they killed his family. Like, I felt like the writer was trying to create a character who maybe like got into hunting vampires, but then didn't know how to write them. So he was just like he or she, whoever wrote this, was just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like, they could not come up with ways to make a character like that interesting, so they just tossed the whole idea out the window. And like, that's fine. But again, I didn't like Astolfo that much. He was probably one of my least favorite characters in this part, and definitely does not shine out anyone else in the story. However, there is one thing that definitely shines out in this story, and that's the developments between Vanitas and Jean. Let's say Jean, like he sometimes says. I believe he says it that way. But the developments between those two is fantastic. Like, first, the two of them end up staying like a small little hut place together where Vanitas is literally on the verge of death, so Jean tries to save him and does a lot of really embarrassing things, and it just develops their relationship. It develops their relationship so much that once they get back from the whole adventure, both of them realize that they've fallen in love with the other. And it is just, I love that episode so much. It's probably my favorite episode of this part. Just seeing where Jean is like, oh, I can't believe I'm in love with Vanitas. And then Vanitas is just like, how? I'm not in love with her, right? Like, he was just teasing her before, but now the fact that they're both actually in love with each other just added so much to it, and I love that. Just the chemistry between the two of them is just so much fun to watch, and it makes me kind of sad that the two of them don't interact more, because I just love seeing them both on the same screen, because they just really bounce off each other well. Not to say Vanitas and Noe don't. Noe and Vanitas bounce off each other really well, especially with the fact that Vanitas is kind of like the parents to Noe, because Noe, despite looking serious, is a very childish character who's constantly getting lost and is always amazed by everything. And yeah, I guess I should probably talk about one more quick thing before anything else, and that is the second storyline of this part, which focuses on Noe learning the past of Vanitas, which, again, I should probably, not again, but I should probably mention this. There's a lot of backstories in this part. Like, part 1 had like 1 or 2 backstories, but this was like jam-packed with backstories for so many characters. So many characters have backstories in this part. It's like not just Vanitas, but there's so many others. Vanitas gets a backstory. Of course, Chloe gets a backstory with Jean Jacques, and Dominique, the girl who lived her child with Noe, she has a bit more of a backstory. There are just so many backstories in this part. It actually made me laugh because there's so many backstories. I'm not complaining. The majority of them were really good. I didn't know much about Dominique's, but most of them were honestly really, really good. And I say not as much Dominique's, but her story was still really good because it was like a continuation to Noe's storyline, where she reveals that because Noe thought she looked exactly like her brother because it was a secret that they were twins, she tried to cut her hair and look like her brother, who Noe seemed to care a lot more about at the time, at least she thought he did. So she tried to look like her brother. However, she eventually went to go with her own look again, but she still really cares a lot about Noe. And there's just so many backstories in this. But again, moving past that to the second storyline, it's a whole thing that's set up to be like a big battle against Vanitas and Noe, where the brother of Vanitas, I believe, he refers to him as Big Brother, so I'm pretty sure they're like brothers, where the character known as Mikhail, I hope I said that right, comes in and is, because he cares so much about his brother to the point where it's like an obsession, he's trying to, I thought he had some brainwashing ability, because he seemed to like manipulate Dominique to make her nearly commit suicide if Noe didn't come and try to listen to what Mikhail had to say. And I'm not too sure how it all works, but it did give a bit more development for Dominique and Noe as well, as Noe learns more about Vanitas' past. And then after that, there's this big battle because Mikhail tries to and almost convinces Noe to try to suck Vanitas' blood, to the point where they end up getting in a fight, revealing that Vanitas has like a self-put-in hypnotic state that keeps him protected, and he does a lot of really crazy things. There's this whole really awesome, in my opinion, it's one of the most epic fights in the series so far. But I don't know, it just, in the end, it felt a bit underwhelming. Like, it was better paced, I guess you could say, than the first half of this part, but it also felt a little more empty. Like, after the episode that started it all off with the mostly focusing on Jean and Vanitas' whole relationship, I felt like it was a bit more of a extra addition that didn't take away but didn't add too much either. If I had to be honest, I actually liked the fact of part 1 more, that focused more on the world building, than this part, which focused more on the characters. I do think part 1 of this is better than part 2. However, I still think this was very solid, and it was very fun to watch, and I do not regret sitting down and watching it, as it was just even more fun. Not as fun, not in the sense of as fun as part 1, but it was still really good. And yeah, so we're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? It's pretty good. I do think part 1 is a bit better. However, this part is still really solid. And that's why I have to give it a good 9 out of 10. Only 1 point less than the last one because it had a few things that were missing and a few things that I didn't like as much, but still very solid, and one of the few vampire stories I actually, even if vampires aren't like the most relevant thing, but well, actually in this part they're way more relevant, but it just was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I was like, when I saw it, I thought it was gonna be like super overhyped for me because I thought it was gonna be like something way too big in my expectations, but it still met them fairly well, and I like this a lot. Not as much as part 1, but I still really like it. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. So thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I also welcome new anime fans to the channel, and yeah, I will see you all around. Peace.